Let's review Ardha Chandrasana, half moon pose. This is a sideways bend that is going to laterally open the spine, open the rib cage, and free up the breath. So let's take a look at this pose. We begin in Tadasana and we step our feet together. We turn the palms to face forward, and on an inhalation we circle the arms out and up, rising up onto the balls of the feet, interlocking the thumbs, and then exhaling as we stretch the arms to the left and shift the hips to the right. The shoulders are soft, down away from the ears, and ideally the heels are lightly lifted in this pose. If you struggle with balance, you could rest the inner left heel down or even both heels on the floor if necessary. Otherwise, try your best to keep both heels lightly lifted because this pose is as much of an upward stretch as it is a sideways stretch. So we want to resist the tendency to collapse the rib cage and sharply bend the spine sideways. And so as we lift and lengthen through both sides of the body, we can gaze upward and tune into the vitalizing effects of this pose as we mentally affirm, strength and courage fill my body cells. And to exit, we'll inhale, lift back up to center, stretching tall. Exhale the arms out to the sides and returning to Tadasana, hip width apart, just to pause and integrate the effects of the pose before repeating on the other side. And let's take a look at the other side of the pose. So as Karen comes back into it, she's stretching up and over. And we just want moderate lateral flexion in the spine here. So as we keep the underside of the body open, we want to avoid the tendency to collapse our weight into this outer hip here, and instead actively lengthen from the inner leg up through the waist, through the arm. And what you'll find naturally happens is that this outer hip and heel are going to rise a little bit higher than the inner hip and heel. So there's a lateral tilt to the pelvis. And this is actually ideal because we want there to be a graceful sideways arc throughout the entire body. Beautiful. And the hip joints are coming into the side bend rather than it being all about the spine bending sideways. So to come out, we'll come back to center and let's take a look at the pose from one more viewing angle. As she comes into the pose again, we want to notice that her shoulders and her hips are in the same plane, meaning if we were to have two panes of glass here, she's stretched directly up and over. She hasn't twisted her torso. She also hasn't leaned forward or back. So she's doing a great job of showing all these things, and the hips face forward, the chest faces forward. Beautiful. And if we have the tendency to go sway back, which is increasing that inward curve of the lumbar spine, we can draw the navel toward the spine or tuck the tailbone down toward the floor. Beautiful. And coming back out, we pause in Tadasana. Lastly, there are some variations to this pose. If you have tight shoulders that cause your arms to float out in front of you, you can actually bend the elbows a little bit more, and that should work fine. You can also bring hands down to a prayer position. Beautiful. Or you can practice the one arm at a time variation where your lower hand is on the upper rim of the pelvis, the upper hand is stretching up and over. Great, and that was a review of Ardha Chandrasana, half moon pose.